The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hi, this is Ashley Eckstein, the voice of Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.
You're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, episode 76.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter, aka Father Fett, and you're listening to the Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Before we begin today's discussion, just a couple quick reminders. You asked, and we have them. T-shirts. So you can get your own official Secrets of Star Wars t-shirt that encapsulates our philosophy of finding hope in a galaxy far, far away, that are available in various styles and sizes. So go to sqpn.com/merch to get your t-shirt today. And we have a new way to join the StarQuest fan club. We are super excited about this. This is so 21st century. You can join the StarQuest fan club mailing list by texting StarQuest to 66866. So that's text StarQuest, all one word, to 66866. That almost has an order 66.
I was going to say there's some ominous numbers in there.
This is not going to kill all the Jedi if you do this. So do it and you'll sign up for our email newsletter. So that's the good order 66 here. And of course, please just be sure to share the podcast on social media to let other people know of our podcast and to help us share and spread the show to those who would like to listen, and leave us a review to let us know how we're doing as well. And that also helps get more people to see our podcast. So today we are discussing the third episode of The Bad Batch. It's called Replacements, and joining me today on the panel are Andrew Hermes.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
It's good to join you guys.
And second and finally this evening, we have Thomas Sanjurjo.
It's good to be here.
It's great to have you. So I don't know if you guys were at all paying attention like I was this week, but we marked a specific anniversary yesterday, technically, May 16th. Any...
Oh,
I don't know it. What was it?
I feel unprepared.
So this yesterday, this week, May 16th, marked the 19th anniversary of the premiere of my favorite movie, Attack of the Clones.
Oh, that's right.
Ah, there you go. Nice.
So
I did see that trending on Twitter.
Yeah. So I was listening to the soundtrack to kind of mark it because I didn't have time to watch the movie. But speaking of clones and Attack of the Clones, we're going to jump to The Bad Batch, and we're talking episode 3. So first of all, guys, what did you just think of this episode in general?
I like this one. I like this one actually better than the second episode. I thought the second episode kind of took the characters in a weird direction that I wasn't really sure where they were going to go with it. And this one brought it back to more of the sort of Bad Batch problem solving, adventurous nature of the show that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the episode as well. And this one felt, I'm sure I wasn't on the first podcast, but I'm sure there are a lot of comparisons to Clone Wars, the Clone Wars series. And this one felt just like a Clone Wars episode. You have your sort of villain or problem of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And, everyone has their part to play, and the story advances, a little bit more. And yeah, it felt familiar, but with the Bad Batch and all these, characters that we're familiar with and just getting to meet, it was a nice episode that didn't feel like just, like what I mentioned, it didn't feel like just a villain of the week episode. It it felt like it had a purpose, and hopefully, now that the episodes are not going to be 70 minutes long like the premiere, we we get a lot in the half hour that we get them in. So I think that it was very it was wrapped in a nice package, and had all the qualities of a solid episode.
Yeah, I found it interesting that with the premiere episode, it was very clearly like a tie from the Clone Wars. You had Tom Kane's narrative introduction, and even the Clone Wars logo popped up and then kind of burned through with the Bad Batch.
Right.
And yet we didn't get the narrative with this episode or with episode 2, I don't think. So it's very much, it was like that was the bridge, and this is kind of asserting itself as its own unique show, which is important. And I do appreciate that. I mean, this particular episode, there wasn't necessarily a whole lot going on, but I like that with this series, it's going to be 16 episodes, that I like that. I think there's enough episodes that they can just kind of take their time, and it's not, it doesn't have to be kind of just rushed and everything has to be kind of crammed into 8 episodes or, whatever. This is kind of setting up for a longer story. I couldn't help but look at this episode and draw comparisons to The Mandalorian season 2 when they get trapped on that ice planet.
Right. I was thinking the same thing when they get trapped. Yep.
And all I could think about was when they started to see the damage on their hull I was thinking, not spiders. Not spiders. Instead, we got a cool dragon, so I'm okay with that.
It was really interesting, though. I thought that the cinematography was very cool in this one, and the other thing that it reminded me of was the movie Pitch Black. I don't know if you guys have seen that one.
Yes.
Great movie, and it's on a dark planet. Like the whole concept is that it's on a dark planet, and so the guy that is blind and knows how to deal with that is obviously the hero of the moment, because he doesn't have to worry about not being able to see anything.
Yeah, this reminded me of. It's funny you mentioned the cinematography and Pitch Black. While I was watching the whole Ordo Moondragon stuff, and it was, while it was so dark, it reminded me of a very late episode of Game of Thrones, late in the last season. It's an infamous episode because it's known as like the dark episode, where like if you didn't have a really nice TV, you pretty much couldn't see anything because it was this huge battle sequence that was done in the dead of night in pitch black, and honestly, I like when I was watching it the first time, it's like, what is exactly going on here? Like, I can't really make out what's happening. It was met with mixed results as far as the Game of Thrones fandom is concerned, but yeah, it reminded me of that. So I think, I mean, it was a wise choice because it adds to the the suspense, and being an animated show, I think they have more leeway to do stuff like that. But yeah, I thought that was cool.
It also just allowed them to highlight the whole the dragon likes pure energy, which you see better in the dark than you would in the daytime. So let's just kind of jump into the recap, and we'll kind of hit a number of things along the way. So the episode starts off with Clone Force 99's attack shuttle suffering damage from their escape in the previous episode from Seleucami, and they are pulled out of hyperspace and crash land on this unknown planet. And they recognize that they need to replace a capacitor in order to fly and leave the planet. One of the things that I wanted to point out here that I thought was good for them to do is this scene. You see Omega just kind of hanging out in the main part of the ship, and they set it up well that like she just has no place of her own, and so I liked that. And we also have the fun interaction between her and Wrecker, and I think this kind of still continues to set up the whole idea that she's slowly integrating into this squad, into this family unit. But even Wrecker initially treats her as another soldier, and when she offers to give him her food, he's willing to just jump on it rather than recognize that she's a kid and probably needs it herself.
Well, but Wrecker's a big kid too, right? I mean, that's kind of Wrecker's shtick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put in my notes that and this will pan out later on in the episode, but I put Wrecker has a big heart. Like for as tough and as big and as he's like a teddy bear on the inside.
Absolutely.
So they crash land on this planet. Meanwhile, on Camino, Crosshair continues to be experimented on by Grand Admiral Tarkin. And we have Vice Admiral Rampart, who implemented the chain code. He arrives on Camino to continue implementing Project War Mantle, which we learn to find is a way to phase out the clone troopers with willing recruits in an attempt to decrease cost and to still have loyal soldiers. And he has recruited this quote-unquote elite squad to be trained under Crosshair.
I love that they're in the black armor, too. That's when you finally see them show up and they're in that Death Trooper armor, it's like, oh, yeah, that's the ticket.
There was a number of connections to Rogue One in this episode. So definitely the Death Troopers, but also that Project War Mantle was one of the various projects that Jyn, rattles off when she's looking at the Imperial computer and she's finding Project Stardust. But we finally, actually, I kind of glossed over it, but we finally know what Project War Mantle is all about. It's their transitioning away from the clone troopers to willing recruits. So Clone Force, back on the planet, Clone Force 99 attempts to repair their ship, and this is where they find ominous claw marks on the side of the ship, and they discover that an Ordo Moondragon, a species that feeds on raw energy, has stolen the capacitor, and Hunter and Omega go out to retrieve the capacitor. That was an interesting pairing, to say the least, but that was kind of what they were setting up for, and I think it has some ramifications later on, but I'll get to that later. And we go back to the elite squad, and this was an interesting point for me. We see them kind of getting poked and prodded by this medical droid, and they're debating why they're fighting. And one of them, kind of the somewhat leader of that little group, if you want to call him that, mentions that with the Empire, he gets paid, fed, and a roof over his head. And he says that the Republic never gave him that. And Vice Admiral Rampart and Lamasu debate over the proficiency of the clones and the recruits. And they decide to test the recruits, or Tarkin decides to test the recruits. And so he decides to send them off under the leadership of Crosshair to wipe out Saw Gerrera's camp, where Clone Force 99 failed in the premiere episode. So I thought that whole interaction was interesting because first of all, we see somewhat of the humanity of the troopers. We see them as sympathetic. It was also a bit of a subverting of the standard kind of the Republic as the good guys, the Empire as the bad guys kind of trope that we've seen, because these recruits were not treated well by the Republic, but with the Empire, they're at least being taken care of, even though they're going to be sort of forced into loyalty by fear, but that's kind of beside the point, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, well, when you're starving, if someone's willing to offer you food and they demand you fear them, that's fine. You still get the food.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it emphasizes more like the failures of the Republic. Like, the movies, do a good job of the prequels do a good job of pointing this out, and as well as the series, and it's just putting shedding more of a light on, like, not every one of these soldiers are here to just do it because they believe in what the Empire is doing. They're like you mentioned, if they're starving or if they feel they're being mistreated by the Republic, we've heard that story a million times in real life where, people will do anything and everything just to put food on the table, even if there's some moral gray area with whatever company they're working for or whatever they have to do. As long as their family's surviving, that's the priority. So yeah, I think that's a good point to where, the Republic should get a lot of the blame for this, where they're putting the danger they're putting the whole galaxy in. a lot of it rests on their shoulders.
You bring up an interesting point. There's actually some Catholic morality there that we can kind of look into, in the sense of, it's the difference between formal cooperation with evil and material cooperation with evil. So
right.
The whole idea there is that someone who, say, is working for a company who, say, the company supports something immoral, they support Planned Parenthood or something like that. A person, if they for a serious reason can't get a job anywhere else, but they're working for this company who does support something wrong, that would be an example of they are in some way materially cooperating with evil, even though they're not intending the evil that's done. So they're not intending it, and they're not actively directly contributing to that. So it's allowable. It's not ideal. If there's a better alternative, that would be the preference. But like you mentioned, like their priority is to support their family, and do those things, and they would be ideally called to to look for a new position elsewhere that would align with their morals. And that's in opposition to what would be, or not opposition, but that's compared to formal cooperation with evil, which is a directly contributing to something that is evil that you are intending as well. And
we see that go down later in the episode too,
exactly.
Right.
They and that's they're falling into this realm of, well, maybe we should say that.
It's an extreme example. We'll get to it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess let's save that discussion for that moment.
Yeah.
But at this point, they are just they are basically in that realm of doing what's allowable morally, because they're putting food on the table, even if they disagree with the Empire's overall goal. So that'll come back here in just a minute. Meanwhile, on the planet, Omega and Hunter track this dragon, and they find the capacitor, and Hunter's oxygen mask is knocked off, and it renders him unconscious. And Omega puts the mask back on him, and she is the one who ventures into the dragon's lair alone with Hunter's blaster, because he's still knocked out cold.
But I really like this scene too, because in the first episode, in the pilot episode, we got a sense that she might be as good a shot as Crosshair. But then here we get the indication that now that she knows what Hunter's skill is, she might also be as good at tracking as he is. And it's a very subtle moment, because they don't really play up how much tracking she does to find the capacitor. But that was the indication they were trying to give, was yes, she is as capable as he is as well.
It's also interesting too that they're playing up the family unit idea, but also Omega's imitation of Hunter. Mm-hmm. There's a number of and it was here, and I think it was in one of the former episodes too, that she's almost directly imitating him. Mm-hmm. And so she wants to be like Hunter. And I think this is kind of showing that she, not only does she want to be like Hunter, she probably is like Hunter and like Crosshair. And I wouldn't be surprised if she has kind of all the characteristics at some point of some of the others, I think this is something that I wanted to bring out. Do you think Omega is a Force sensitive clone?
Ooh.
I hope she's not. I actually hope she's not. I hope. I don't mind if she is, but I hope that she's just the perfection of what all of these clones were a small step toward. Right. So each one of the Bad Batch has something about them that's unique, and that is that sets them apart from the regs. Right. Whereas she theoretically should have all of those things, because she is that pinnacle clone. She's the one that they perfected.
Yeah, I've seen this like debate spark up, about Omega's character, and I I kind of agree with Thomas. I mean, I don't think she is. I think maybe that's just there's definitely something special about her. And I kind of lean more towards, what Thomas was saying. Like she's probably just like the perfection of what these clones can be. And I think that like at, I mean, obviously we're guessing here, but I think at most she might like maybe sort of like Finn's character where they kind of teased,
oh sure, yeah,
that he was forced, like maybe not that far, because like with him it's like it was pretty obvious, but maybe they'll toy around with the idea a little bit, but I think ultimately she'll be her own character, and not play around with like that aspect of, should she like try and be a Jedi, or should she go deeper into Force powers? I think she'll want to be more like her counterparts now, like she'll want to be more like you were talking about, like more like Hunter, and just be the the best person in that sort of this clan or batch that she can be. I don't think she would want, if she discovered that she could, if she was Force sensitive or anything like that. I don't know if she would necessarily want to go down that road.
Now, am I misremembering this? Like in the trailers, wasn't there a point at which she used like a light bow? Like she had like a bow, and it was like a laser bow. And that was my biggest like, are they gonna go like weird Jedi with this? Like, like she doesn't use a lightsaber, she uses a light bow. It's like, oh, okay, I don't know. But I don't know, we'll see how that all plays in. But
I suspect that both of you are right. That's kind of how I see it too. And I think the reason that it's important to bring this up is I think this is a very strong way that they can connect to both the Mandalorian with Grogu and Dr. Pershing and the Strand cast and the whole clone kind of presence there. But I think ultimately it's connecting all of that to then ultimately Emperor Palpatine, who is, by the time of the Rise of Skywalker, we know at some point they were able to create a Force sensitive clone, and that's the body that Emperor Palpatine inhabits by the time of Rise of Skywalker. So I think that this is sort of the preliminaries, and I think I would bet that the experiments that Lama Su and Nala Se are talking about at the end of the episode could be stepping in that direction. So I agree with you both. I think she's skilled and by her genetics and the genetic code and whatever, but I don't think it's Force sensitivity just yet.
I also have a feeling that there is a much more sinister undertone to the phasing out of the Kaminoans. And because why would there be the strand cast genetic, the Empire be doing all of this genetic stuff if they had the Kaminoans to turn back to and say, well, can you guys make us a Force sensitive clone? So I think that part of what this series is going to do is build that story of what happens to the Clone Force and the Kaminoans, and why their program is shut down and transferred over to the Empire itself.
On the one hand, we sort of have an answer to some degree, and that's it's not cost effective, at least according to Tarkin.
Right.
And the reason for that is because he's trying to use money to build the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that, but that doesn't necessarily answer all the questions.
Right.
One of the other potentials here is that they want to take that knowledge and that technology and isolate it, and it probably wouldn't be good for the Empire to create an army of Force sensitive clones who could turn on them. But if they can isolate it and then just use it for the Emperor, then we'll see where they go. But that's an interesting thought.
I think for sure, going back to Omega, the the way I think if her character like really becomes like really popular, and I don't know, she sells a lot of toys, and it's I think for sure I don't know, there's something about her where I think everything from her, like her look and design and all the sort of curiosity that's surrounding her, I think they're definitely priming her for potential live action counterpart in Mandalorian. That's just a feeling I have. I mean, that's based on nothing, but I feel like, the fact that she is like, not to compare her to Grogu, but she's a younger, cuter character. She could kind of, the next phase of that on the Mandalorian, since Grogu will probably not. We don't know anything.
Although she'd be older by the time
that is true.
Good appears in the Mandalorian.
Maybe she dyed her hair black and goes by Cara Dune by that point.
Willing to bet she doesn't, but
time will tell. Back on Onderon, which is where the elite squad was sent to take out Saw Gerrera's camp. And it's important to point out that Tarkin ordered them to wipe out Saw Gerrera's camp. So that was the order. And Crosshair, again being kind of influenced by his inhibitor chip, is all about good soldiers follow orders. And so he determines that the camp needs to be wiped out, even though Saw Gerrera is not there. One of the recruits is unwilling to do this because he's recognizing that they're going to be killing civilians who are there just trying to make a living, even though they were part of Gerrera's camp. And he refuses to wipe out the camp and follow orders. And so he determines that they're going to take them prisoner. And Crosshair determines that is a disobeying of the orders and kills that particular recruit. And he demands that the others kill the civilians lest they too are taken out by Crosshair.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is much darker than anything that happened in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, this was dark.
Yeah.
And this is where that morality kind of comes to play, where the one recruit who refuses to do the evil, he was the one actually doing the moral good there. Now, Crosshair, we can kind of look at and say, well, he is not fully in control, so he doesn't share the same guilt, the culpability, as we would say in the Catholic faith, because he doesn't have the free will to choose, the good here. He is being programmed to follow orders. The other recruits, however, they cross that line then from just merely kind of materially cooperating because they're trying to feed their family to then formally cooperating because even though they're not really, they don't want to do it, but they're being forced to do it. So actually that kind of reduces their culpability too. But they make the decision to kill and to stay alive rather than actually do what would be the morally right thing and refuse to kill and then sacrifice themselves because of it.
And this, it goes back to that debate about what a valuable soldier is, right? And, we had that debate on the last episode where we were talking about, well, it's more valuable to have soldiers that want to be there, that voluntarily join up. But then also this next step of not only did they volunteer to be there, but now they are committing atrocities in the name of the Empire. And that binds them so much more fully to the Empire than any chip that they can implant in their head and force them to do anything with, because now they have to justify that action for themselves, which leads to more actions of the same kind and more justifications.
Yep. Well, and even by the end of the episode, those troopers are not like, it's not shown that they decide to just turn tail and leave because of what they were forced to do. They chose to do it out of fear of being killed by Crosshair, but they have committed themselves to going down this road, which is, of course, not at all moral or good. And I couldn't help but think here and of the difference between so you were just talking about what makes a good soldier, and what makes a good soldier is, of course, having a moral compass and following it. But but also loyalty, and in the sense of loyalty to what is right and just. But here there's a distinction between these troopers who are creating are basically they're inspired to be loyal by fear, and that could cause problems down the road, as opposed to someone like Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is very good at inspiring loyalty because of his personality and his care and leadership. And so I like the kind of the conjunction of both of those sorts of ideas, that these troopers are the first of the stormtroopers that are being inspired into loyalty by fear, which actually makes them less good soldiers, I guess, if that makes sense, you know.
Yeah, because they're not really being conditioned. I mean, they are in a way, but it's like you said, it's driven by fear, and and that just leaves room for, like there was that one guy that tried to be, I don't know if he was just necessarily trying to be a hero, but he was just trying to do the right thing by saying like, hey, we're not gonna kill these people, they're civilians.
Well, I think it's important to connect who it was too, because that was the guy that was saying the Republic never did anything for me. And so he sees in these civilians himself, and that's why he's unwilling to commit to that act, because he sees these people. And so now he's breaking with the Empire, because the Empire is not any better than the Republic was at this point. If they're going to tell him to just kill refugees.
Sure.
And so the whole thing shatters on that moment for him, which is really important.
Yeah. And like I was saying, it just takes another guy like him who is like stronger or has more supporters behind him to, overthrow, someone like Crosshair, whether he's being controlled or not.
Right.
Like it leaves room for that. But like you were saying, Father, if it's someone more like Thrawn, who is like inspiring and, or brainwashing, but it's effective, then you're conditioning these soldiers and you're making them believe in a cause. And once they see like everyone's on the same page, it just, it's like just pouring gasoline on the fire. They're fueling each other, and they're it's no longer just justifying what they're doing. It's like they actually believe in what they're doing.
And this is the story of Finn in the sequel trilogy.
Right.
He refused to kill at the very beginning of The Force Awakens, and then he is one of the major players in having the Resistance rise up against the First Order. So I mean, that's he was a soldier who chose to do the right thing, and that was his story. Now this guy unfortunately is not able to live that out because Crosshair took him out. Which
I think is a really interesting moment in the show too, because earlier in the show when they were having trouble with this ship, when the Clone Force 99 was having trouble with their ship and it was coming out of hyperspace and stuff, Hunter and Omega were talking about Crosshair, and Hunter brought up a good point that he felt bad that they had left one of their own behind. And she mentions, well, maybe we can go save him. And that, for me, was an amazing moment because it turned the show on its head. Suddenly, we're not worried about Crosshair hunting them down. We are. But at the same time, they have to save him. Like, it's not just that they have to run from him, but that they have to save him. And that it totally shifts the focus of the show now to, we want him to hunt us down so that we can get another chance to get him out of there and pull him back.
He is a very unique villain in that sense. Most villains you want to see defeated. You want to see destroyed or, taken out or whatever. But Crosshair is a villain that we know Crosshair. We knew him when he was, officially part of the Clone Force 99 and yeah, we want to see him saved. So there's a whole different dynamic with him as kind of the overarching villain. It adds a bit of tragedy and emotional weight that just having the bad guy be the bad guy doesn't have. So yeah, that's very clearly the direction that they're taking this show, and I think that's important, and I think it then also again kind of ties back to a family theme, and I really like that they're doing this both very particularly with Star Wars Rebels, but even the Bad Batch, you've got the Squad, and you don't leave someone behind, and so that's going to be the impetus of Clone Force 99 as they're trying to save their comrade.
Yeah, it's like the Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
right. Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Captain America was, willing to, to save his brother, no matter what it took, and even if he wasn't gonna, turn back to being, Bucky Barnes, he was willing to die for it. So yeah, that reminds me a lot of the Winter Soldier story.
I hadn't made that connection, but that is very true. Yeah. So back on the planet, Omega finds the dragon inside the lair and the capacitor, and this was also a very important moment, I think, for her, because she has Hunter's senses, I think, here, because she is able to kind of see what's going on. She has Hunter's blaster, but she recognizes that she doesn't need to use it, so she doesn't have to kill the dragon, but rather she just uses her flashlight to, I love how it kind of acted like a dog. Like she threw the flashlight and the dragon goes off and gets it. But that was enough to distract it so she could grab the capacitor and escape. And I think that this was important because it shows her moral compass, that she didn't just, the first thing that she thought of, she didn't go down the road of just kill and take, but rather she found the alternative way of preserving the life, and then but still getting what she needed. She lost a flashlight in the process, but that's easily replaced. Tarkin, back on Kamino, is impressed by the elite squad having succeeded, and this is where we get some more insight into his view on it. He calls the clone trooper program a cost-prohibitive relic of the past, but for the moment, it's going to continue to serve its purpose, which apparently is going to be training recruits as they continue to go with Project Warmantle. And Rampart then is promoted to Admiral because of this success. So he's going to play a role in this series as well, I am sure of. And then we kind of come to the conclusion of the episode. We have the dialogue between Lama Su and Nala Se as they are discussing their clones becoming obsolete and they want to make them essential for the Empire. And that's where Lama Su tells Nala Se that they will begin the next phase, quote unquote. And he tells her to continue her experiments on creating a superior clone. So this also is going to have to play out. And this is, of course, very vague and ambiguous on what they're trying to get at here. But any thoughts?
Snoke.
I hope we get some backstory for that character, because good grief, it's just something in there.
Or maybe stay away from it. I don't know.
I don't know. It's a toss up. Like, which one's better at this point?
I feel like, I'm okay with what Disney's doing, because I think we're all sort of in the same boat that we're maybe less fond of the sequel trilogy, but the more that they're able to kind of fill in some of this stuff in the Rebellion era, I'm okay with it, because it does end up making the sequel trilogy make more sense story wise.
Right.
Even it's kind of like what the animated series did for the prequels. Like, I know we love the prequels, because of growing up with it. But it's no secret that the prequels are mixed at best. But the animated series just takes it to a whole nother level. So yeah, I agree with that. I think if their track record speaks for itself, so I think they could definitely do that for the sequels.
I was interested in the statements that they were making about still needing the genetic material from one of the clones, and it's like, but they have Crosshair, so what exactly is it that they need if they can't just go grab Crosshair and say, hey, we need to splice some of your genes out and do something with them? And they weren't specific about Omega. It's not like they needed to get Omega back. It's that they needed one of the CF-99 clones, or one of the clones that's out in that squad. So I'm intrigued at what that's going to look like in the end.
So maybe it's Hunter they're after.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously at this point, Django is not alive, so the original source is not able to be there. But
well, and the material's degrading, so that's they need a fresh set, and they need it from one of the clones. And it's because there was a lot of talk about the inhibitor chips in this one. That was really kind of, it was subtle, and I liked the fact that it was as subtle as it was. But and my wife pointed this out afterwards. She said, "I'm worried about all of them now," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, they're all like touching their heads, and like Wrecker's got the thing with his head. He knocked his head during coming out of hyperspace." Yep. But she's like, there was a lot of references to his head, so I'm kind of worried that he's going to start going crazy with the inhibitor chips, and that seems to be a concern that Tech actually has. Which Tech is not, the way he states things. It's like, yeah, this is a problem. and you don't know how big a problem it is until all of a sudden it's a really big problem.
I also wonder if Omega has an inhibitor chip. She keeps talking about them as if all the clones except for her has one, but she's also a clone, so she could be just as vulnerable, or that could be like a failsafe that they genetically coded into her or put into her too. So lots of open questions, which is good. That makes for a good series. We conclude the episode with something very lighthearted, and I appreciated this. They do leave the planet, and they officially welcome Omega into the squad by Wrecker showing her that he made her a bedroom, which, from what I gathered, it looked like the gunner area, correct? Like that was where the so she has her little loft now in the where the gunner area is, and Wrecker even gave her that stuffed animal, the Lula.
Yes, it was so cute. And he did a face on it and everything. That was
yeah. So I appreciated that. That concludes the episode. Are there other things that struck any of your guys' interest or that you wanted to point out?
I really like the tack they're taking with the cinematography as being completely separate from the Clone Wars. It's really nice. And even with one of the things that they did with the faces in the Clone Wars was kind of have those sharper angles to them. But they were really playing it up in this season. It's very much all about these stark, sharp angles and that dry brushstroke painting. And it makes it look so crisp. It's just a really nice effect.
Yeah, you can tell they're pouring money into this one. And and the animation is really next level. Like it's really awesome. Like for a series like this. Especially a 16 episode series, it's Dave Filoni is like, we're watching him like get even better at his own craft. So it's great to watch.
They're saving money by using just one voice actor so they can pour money into the
so that's what it is. They can just throw it back into the
series. One of the other things that I wanted to point out finally was Crosshair's helmet is starting to look a lot more like a stormtrooper helmet.
Yes.
And that was
his whole getup. Yeah.
Yep. The other recruits still had sort of a clone trooper look to their armor, but Crosshair's new armor was looking more stormtrooper. So you kind of got that subtle shift in where the troopers are going. So with that, I think that concludes our discussion this evening. So, of course, listeners, we want to know what you thought of this episode of The Bad Batch, and we would love to start that conversation with you. So you can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com, and you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia and on Twitter at SQPN. We'd also like to take a moment now to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Star Wars, including this week, John G., Amanda M., Per H., Stephen H., and Robert B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Wars and all the shows that we make here at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Also, of course, be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss a single episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can find us on the SQPN YouTube channel. Just be sure to click that bell to get notifications for new episodes. And you can find all of our previous episodes by going to sqpn.com/Star Wars. We will be back next week as we will take a deeper look into episode 4 of The Bad Batch. So, of course, be sure to watch it on Disney Plus first and then join us as we discuss it a few days later. So until next time, Andrew Hermes, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And Thomas Sanjurjo, thanks for joining us this evening as well.
It's been great.
And once again, I'm Father Andrew Kinstetter. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.